Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakadash, double honors and salutations to the elders and apostles of real mystery, and to the Akim and Akwath, throughout the four corners of the earth, holding on in sincerity and in truth to the gospel of the Mashiach Yahushai in these days and times, with sincerity of heart. This Brother Nasha DC Camp short lesson for the hopeful elect. Yeah, I've been meaning to do this lesson for quite some time, and hey, you just got to let the Spirit have its course. All right, that's the best operation you could go with. Or you cannot force the Spirit against the course of the way the Most High want things to go. All right, you just have to be in the spirit of humility. In other words, you have to be submissive, and that's a challenge. You know, a lot of brothers have to master and overcome. All right, we tend to mingle our emotions and our feelings that we have in the world with the scriptures, and it kind of makes things go in a redundant path, and that's what the lack of experience, the lack of wisdom. That's what it ends up reflecting. Right? That's the reason why you need to have that spirit of wisdom. The spirit of patience, man. That spirit of patience is a spirit that we tend to overlook in a lot of circumstances. So the scripture here, Matthew 11 and 6 says, "And blessed is he whosoever shall not be offended in me." This ministry, this journey, this path comes with all types of tests and persecution. The scripture talks about the trial of your faith. And a lot of folks don't even know how far, that the trial of your faith, of their faith, can be. Every day is a trial of your faith, man. Even when you're at camp, you're among brothers, you're on the plantation and all that, your faith is constantly being tested. Your faith was made to be refined. So it has to go through certain circumstances, man. The Lord's not just going to allow you to come and seek rest among the brothers. You're bringing your faith into the fire. You have the fire, the circumstances among the brotherhood, and then you have the circumstances in the world, man. So you're constantly in between fires, man. You're going from one fiery situation to another fiery situation. In other words, you have to be constantly purified, man. You just don't come around brothers and think you're going to be comfortable and relax and be smiling and giggling. You're coming around brothers to be to be sharpened up. The scripture tells you about iron sharpened iron. Iron, when you sharpen iron against iron, you have friction, you have heat, and all that stuff, man. And what's the final result? Sharpness. The end result is what the owner of the instrument wants to do with it. So it just don't make no sense, man. For folks to be upset about the situation they find themselves in, man. What is the end goal? That's what a lot of brothers should be asking themselves, man. Folks just falling out because of a situation where they could simply apply the word of the Lord to and grow from there, man. You have to grow. All right, the Lord tells you what you have to do to maintain your composure in this truth. All right. Oh boy. Yeah. The Apostle Paul even talk about it, man. You have to watch and pray. You know, you don't want your flesh to cause you to stumble, and then you just give up and throw in the towel, and then the doctrine changes. So that's one thing you have to guard against. So we get another precept from the book of Matthew chapter 13, and we go to verse 21. What does it say? Right, so this is about the parable of the sower, man. So it says in verse 19. It says, when anyone heareth the word of the kingdom and understandeth it not, then cometh the wicked one and catcheth away that which was sown in his heart. This is he which received the seed by the wayside, but he that receiveth the seed into stony places, the same is he that heareth the word, and anon with joy receiveth it, yet he had no root, not root in himself, but dureth for a while. For when tribulation or persecution ariseth because of the word, by and by he is offended. So you have to understand, man, this ministry doesn't come with a bed of roses, man. It doesn't come with perfumes and laughter and positive thinking on a daily basis. You have to deal with the balance, man. You have to deal with the insufficiencies and inconsistencies and all that stuff, man. The shortcomings. You know, the elements of procrastination, the elements of frustration. You have to learn how to master those challenges. Yeah, without mastering those challenges, you can never have growth. You know, the person's perspective will be all out of whack. You know, so that's the reason why. And you read as much as you can. Master the basics, man. Master the basics before you move on to the next stage. Don't think that you've mastered the basics and then, when the time comes to apply those basics, all the brothers will be hearing will be anger, frustration, and jealousy, the lack of reasoning, to the spirit of correction, the overwhelming vibration of low self-esteem. Most of them didn't bring it to this ministry to be worrying about low self-esteem, man. That doesn't have any place in this ministry. The Most High brought you in the ministry to put all that stuff aside and seek something that's higher beyond yourself. Yeah, which is to become a servant of Yahweh Shema Shai. You're not in this ministry to become a servant of your depression, man. A servant of your false narratives, of your falsehoods, of your feelings. That's not what you're here for. That's not what we're here for, man. The greatest position you can have in this world, on this earth, is to be a servant of Hamashiach Yahushai. That's about it, And that position comes with requirements. You're constantly checking yourself against the job description Hamashiach Yahushua has set before us. So we'll get another precept. It's going to be from the book of Mark 4 and 17. This is also another example of the parable of the sower. It tells you, man, you have to let the word of the Lord take firm hold in your spirit, man. It's that clear. If you don't allow the word of the Lord to be properly situated, to be properly founded upon in your mind, you just delaying the process. You're delaying the growth process, man. You're getting in the way of your salvation, and that's the challenge. brothers have to deal with on a daily basis, man. You can't be your own worst enemy and expect folks to drop what they're doing to come and rescue you. Scripture tells you, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, with the wisdom of the Lord, and respect. You have to have respect for the doctrine of the Lord Mashiach Yahushua, that you are able, to be on your P's and Q's. No matter how low you fall, man, you still have an opportunity to hold on to the basics, man. Without compromising, the spirit of the brotherhood. So another precept will be from the book of Proverbs, chapter 18 and 19, man. It says, a brother offended is harder to be won than a strong city, and their contentions are like the bars of a castle. Yeah, so when you have a clash of perspectives, man, that is not properly aligned with the gospel of the Mashiach Yahushua, it just become a fruitless engagement, man. That's just what happens. When folks don't want to receive correction, they're struggling against it, they're ignoring it. It becomes a fruitless endeavor, man. It's like a waste of energy. It's like putting all your valuable time into an opportunity that yields no results. So brothers just have to be careful, man. You've seen examples about how folks just ignore the simplicity in Hamashiach Yahushua and become a laughing stock to the whole nation. Yeah, so, brothers got to grow in the spirit, man. Stop holding on to grudges, man. The Lord has already mentioned that you're going to have to learn to deal with the challenges of your flesh, man. You don't come into this ministry and think that you're going to have a red carpet, thinking brothers are always going to be there as your mental therapist 24/7. You better put in the time too. The Lord gave us the scriptures to tap into, man. So you'll be able to stay above the storm, stay above the choppy waters. That's so simple that we have to deal with. You can't just be in the victimhood mindset on a daily basis, just holding on to grudges. On a constant, on a constant time frame, man. Constantly holding on to grudges. This person did this person did that. You shouldn't let that be a part of your memories in this truth, man. It shouldn't be a major milestone of your presence in this ministry, man. It doesn't say you shouldn't forget it, but at least don't let it be a stumbling block for you in this ministry, man. You have better opportunities in this ministry that you ever had in the world, so why jeopardize it? All right. So it's not that complicated. Being among brothers, you have to learn how to do things from the inside out. All right, the way the Lord Hamashiach Yahushua wants you to do it. You have to purge yourself, man, from within. You're not looking for clues on the outside, to fix yourself. You're looking for clues on the inside. Whatever is bothering you, it's not coming from the outside. It's a reflection of what's on the inside. So you have to learn to work on it. All right. Now another precept will be from the book of Sirach, chapter 32 and 15. What does it say? He that seeketh the Lord shall be filled therewith, but the hypocrite will be offended thereat. All right. So this is, in fact, verse 14. That's the point I'm trying to reach at. Sirach 32 and 14. Whoso fear the Lord will receive his discipline, and they that seek him early shall find favor. All right. So that's the reason why you want to be among brothers, man. You're among brothers to build up your discipline. All right. You're not around brothers to build up your happiness, your joy, and all that stuff, man. Discipline, being dedicated to the course of this gospel, regardless of how you feel. Be diligent in season and out of season. That's what discipline is all about, man. Being consistent. Keeping your hand on the plow, regardless of how much ache and pain you're going through. That's what it's all about. All right. And then verse 15 says, He that seeketh the law shall be filled therewith, but the hypocrite will be offended thereat. So you know exactly what the Lord brings to you, man. Balance, man. To understand the limitations that you can you have to work with, man. And then you have to let your faith, be your guiding light. Your faith in the word of the Lord be the guiding light for you to move forward, man. Because you cannot keep all the laws, perfectly. So why are you stressing yourself? Being offended when you haven't even you haven't been able to keep the laws completely, perfectly, but yet you're making room to be offended. So, brothers just have to learn to grow in the spirit, man. It's challenging, going against the flesh. But at the end of the day, you have to know there's a reason why you have to overcome your ego, overcome your so-called feelings, your opinions, and all that stuff. You have to learn to admit that you have some type of ego that you have to keep in check. You can't allow your ego to run over you, man. In the world, you have to learn how to pick your fights. Also in this ministry, man, you're not going to have time to be engaging with every discourse, man, every argument. You just have to let it go. Sometimes you don't have time, to argue. It's not even in your best interest to be arguing. You just listen, accept, reflect, and move forward. All right. So one more precept and wrap it up. Because we're walking on thin ice. Every brother in this ministry is walking on thin ice, man. You have to be careful how you operate. You don't want to upset the apple cart, the Most High's apple cart. All right. So, the book of Isaiah, chapter 57 and 20. It says, But the wicked are like the troubled sea, when it cannot rest, whose waters cast up mire and dirt. All right. So you need to have stability. Scripture, Isaiah 33 and 6 says, Wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times. So what is so hard in holding on to that gospel, man? Times, so many times we've read that scripture, Isaiah 33 and 6. It says what also? The fear of the Lord is his treasure. So I don't understand, man, why brothers just have to just act like little girls, man, and start acting, like their feelings is the most precious commodity on the face of the earth. Yeah, man, that's just another headache, man. You have to process. So Isaiah 57 and 20, but the wicked are like the troubled sea, which when it cannot rest, whose waters cast up mire and dirt. There is no peace, says my power to the wicked. So you have to understand, man, you have to learn how to live at peace with the servants of Hamashiach Yahushai. You know, you have to learn to operate on the foundation, on a level where you understand what is expected of you, what type of circumstances to expect. You have to be a part of in this ministry, man. You know, there's a reason why you have counsel. There's a reason why, certain things happen to brothers. It's not for brothers to be condemned. It's for brothers to grow in the spirit. So that's the point of this lesson, man. We all have to grow. We all have to take the initiative to reflect on the trial of our faith and to grow, man. You can't just acknowledge, your offense and refuse to apply the proper solution to it, man. So, we have to grow in the spirit, man. It's necessary. It's important. So with time, with more trials, we'll get there. We'll overcome. Shalom.